Hello, today I'm talking about why I think it is very unlikely that Meta's new app Threads will kill Twitter off anytime soon. So first, a bit of context. As many of you will know, Meta recently launched what's essentially a clone of Twitter called Threads. It's all about writing opinions and driving conversation, and Mark Zuckerberg says that he believes Twitter hasn't really nailed this and he thinks that Threads will. So that would imply that he's being very competitive about it and essentially is going after Twitter's audience. So why now? Well, Zuck tends to only go after apps that are pretty successful. So when Snapchat was on the rise, when TikTok was on the rise, he basically cloned their products and drove a lot of success for his own businesses from the back of it. That could potentially indicate that actually Twitter is more financially viable than it has been at any time over the last 10 years. He's also obviously sensing some weakness. Lots of Twitter's users have been very publicly saying that they're going to be leaving, that they don't want to be there, that they don't like Elon and all the rest of it. And I think there is some sense that those people feel like they need a new home. Also, Twitter have been rate limiting the feeds, which is essentially where they limit the number of posts users can see. Elon says this is to prevent data scraping, but it has meant that lots of users have experienced moments where they can't see posts that they want to see because they've been blocked from doing so. I also think that there is some recognition here of the value of Twitter's data set, which is essentially the global conversation. As we're moving into an age where large language models are becoming increasingly powerful, the data that they're trained on is becoming more and more of a prized commodity. Now, Twitter's data set is clearly hugely valuable, which is why Elon has rate limited it, because he wants to stop people from getting access to this valuable commodity that he currently owns. I think there is some recognition on the Meta side that having ownership over that global conversation to use to train large language models in the future is going to be a very powerful thing. So what's the risk? Well, I think there is some pretty considerable risk to Twitter. This is clearly a space that Mark Zuckerberg knows very well. He's won lots of battles in the past. He beat Google Plus. He beat Snapchat. He's beating TikTok. He's won this stuff. He knows this space. He knows how to build hyper engaging apps. He knows how to get eyeballs on advertiser content in a really, really effective way. Elon, on the other hand, is playing catch up on this. This isn't his world, and he's you can see in a lot of the moves that he's making that he's testing and learning as he goes, and that's not always particularly helpful for Twitter's community of advertisers. He's making mistakes. Zuckerberg is also pretty upfront about what he's trying to do. He went to Twitter to post a picture of the Spider-Man meme to essentially recognize the fact that he is cloning Twitter and going after them. So it is open competition, and it's going to be exciting to see how it plays out. I think Elon has also had some pretty serious challenges of his own. The first and most important being, I think that he's an engineer. He's not really a people person. He's great with things. He's not so great with people. And social networks as they currently exist are all about advertising. And the advertising world doesn't really work like that. He's also faced some challenges in the way that he's tried to bring free speech back to Twitter. So he allowed many right-wing voices back onto the platform who had previously been shadow banned or banned outright. And that has led to a lot of people from the opposite side of the political spectrum on the left saying that they don't feel like it's the kind of place that they want to be anymore. And so a lot of those people are going to be some of the first to jump ship and go to Threads and really talk about how much they love it there. Advertisers have also expressed some concerns with the free speech, I suppose, with the right-wing elements coming back onto the platform. They've said that it's not necessarily always going to be content that they want to be associated with. This advertiser management is something that Facebook have historically been very, very good at, and Meta have been very, very good at courting the ad world. I know about this personally. They're great at it. They listen, they're responsive, and advertisers love them. Digital marketers love them. So why do I not think that Meta will kill off Twitter? Well, firstly, whether you like it or not, the free speech element is compelling. These conversations that happen where the rubber hits the road, where people really disagree, it's not always nice and it's not always friendly, but it's compelling. It's where the real fundamental conversations about where we're at as a species take place. And I think that Twitter is clearly saying that they're going to censor as little as possible Threads, on the other hand, have pretty much already indicated that they're quite happy censoring a lot more. So I think they will be much more free to shadow ban and censor voices they don't necessarily like or that advertisers don't necessarily like. And that will mean that the real conversation, the real difficult, hard conversations will still be happening on Twitter. Meta have in fact already said that they really want to focus on kindness and friendliness and make it a nicer, more sanitized place, which I think is fine, but it will essentially become more like LinkedIn, where the opinions are going to be the kind of opinions that you wouldn't mind your employer seeing, which again is fine and great, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it will become like a kind of mix of Instagram and LinkedIn rather than the kind of cesspit that Twitter often is. And I say that laughing because it is kind of funny, but a lot of the conversation on Twitter isn't nice, and it can be pretty awful at times, but life isn't always nice. There are actually, there are a lot of people out there in the wider world who aren't especially happy with either their life or the world around them, and they've got gripes and they want to talk about them. And yes, it can often feel quite negative and quite dark and sometimes quite nasty. Now, I'm not saying that I advocate for trolling or incitement to violence or any of those awful things, but the fact is that we don't live in a perfect world where everybody's happy and they just want to share opinions on how wonderful the world is all the time. Actually, sometimes they want to share opinions about how bad things are, and they can often be quite rude when they do it. That's the kind of thing that is how we figure out what we're about and progress as a society, I think. The moment where you start silencing, voices that aren't happy is the moment where you cut them out and they go and try and find somewhere else to talk, which is why platforms like Donald Trump's Truth Social grew so much when Twitter was shadow banning people, is because those people didn't feel like they had anywhere to talk. So I think Twitter is going to win on that front, or at least it's not going to die on that front. Meta have also said that they're not especially interested in taking on hard news. And so a lot of what they're going to focus on is community stuff. It's going to be things like sport, like fashion, beauty, that kind of thing. More magazine-y as opposed to the more sort of newspapery Twitter. And that's kind of what Instagram is like. And I think that's fine. And I think that will do well. But I don't think it's what Twitter is about. And I don't think it's going to kill Twitter's place as the center for big news events. When big news events happen, the first place I tend to go to, and the first place lots of Twitter users tend to go to, is to Twitter, because you find out what's going on in real time. Now, Threads have basically said that they're not super interested in being the hard news platform, and I don't think they will be. I don't think they will take that from Twitter. So Twitter will still exist for that purpose as well. Finally, I think it's also important to note that Elon Musk isn't the kind of person who just sits around waiting to get beaten. We've seen this time and again. He's won on cars. He's got rockets to space. He moves fast and he makes stuff happen. And I think the same is going to be the case with Twitter. He's actually looking beyond the social media side. He's already said that he wants to make it an everything app. Payments are going to be a big part of it. He wants it to be more akin to a WeChat in China, where you do everything through this particular app. They're going to have a focus on secure DMs. It's not just going to go back to what Twitter was like a couple of years ago. In fact, the reinstating shadow ban people is really, I think, in Elon's mind, only a very small part of what he eventually wants to do with Twitter. Remember, this is the person who was crucial to the invention of PayPal. So Twitter is going to become more. There's going to be more features, and it's important to remember that they now have diversified revenue streams as well. So Twitter Blue, which you now pay for, means that they have a much more secure, reliable stream of revenue coming in that is not dependent upon advertisers. Now, I kind of compare this to what happened with the news, with newspaper websites, 10 years ago. There was those who remained free and relied on advertising revenue, and those that used membership or subscription revenue to drive quality going forward. Now, at first, the sites like the Financial Times or The Economist, who relied on subscriptions, didn't make that much money from it, and it was quite a hard slog. But actually what you find over time is that because they have that more secure and diversified revenue, they're able to make decisions which are unequivocally in their own interest rather than in the interest of advertisers. Now, it's not clear to me that Meta are planning on doing this with Threads. In fact, it's far more likely that they will court advertisers in exactly the same way they've always done, which will work for them and will drive lots of revenue for them. But it will limit them because they have to take their advertisers into account on every decision they make. That will not be the case with Twitter. So I think that it will surprise you. I think they will come up with ideas that are truly innovative. Social media hasn't really been innovated on to any great degree since TikTok, really. TikTok changed the game and made that vertical video style huge. But in the West, there hasn't really been much innovation for a long time. I suspect that we are going to, one way or another, we're going to see big innovation in the social space soon, because there's going to be like a space race between these two platforms. And I don't think that Twitter's going to get killed. So overall, I don't think Threads is going to lose. I think that it will create an audience, particularly on the left, and it will become integrated into Instagram, expand Instagram's functionality, and continue to make lots of money for Meta. But I don't think it's going to kill Twitter. I honestly don't really think they're the same thing at all. I think Twitter's got a very different audience and a very different plan for the future. And I don't see it being taken out by this version of Threads. So that's it from me. I would love to hear what you think. Leave it in the comments below. I'm going to be posting this to Twitter. I probably won't post it to Threads because I've only just got started on it, but obviously on YouTube as well and the podcast. So please do continue to subscribe wherever you interact with me, and I will see you next time.